After letting my elderly neighbor borrow my tools for months, I politely asked for them back. He slammed the door in my face and said, "They're mine now. You're too soft to do anything." The next morning, my shed was ransacked. All my equipment gone. I sat in silence for days, until I found out what he did with them and decided, I never thought I'd be the kind of person to get pushed around. I'm not loud, not tough, but I've always been the type to help when someone asks. I believed in being a good neighbor. That's where this whole thing started. Mr. Hargrove moved in across the street about a year ago. Older guy, probably in his late 70s. He looked fragile at first, thin arms, stiff legs, always with a cane or walker. But he was polite. Always waved when I took out the trash. Asked about my dog, even gave him a biscuit once. A few months after he moved in, he knocked on my door one Saturday morning. Said he was trying to fix a loose board on his deck and asked if he could borrow a screwdriver set. I handed it over, no problem. He returned it the next day. Then a week later, he asked for my drill. Said he'd need it for a couple days. Took about 3 weeks to get it back. That pattern continued. The saw. The nail gun. My wrench set. I'd lend. He'd delay. Always had an excuse. Had a flare-up in my back. My nephew was supposed to help but canceled. I just need another day. At first, I didn't think much of it. He was old, living alone, and I figured maybe he didn't have the money to buy his own. It felt wrong to say no. So I kept letting him borrow. But after 6 months, almost half of my tools were at his place. I made a list. Over $1,200 worth. I hadn't seen most of it in weeks. One Saturday morning, I finally decided to ask for everything back. I knocked on his door, expecting maybe an awkward conversation, maybe a small apology. What I got instead. He looked at me through the screen door and said flat out, "They're mine now." I laughed, thinking he was joking. But he didn't even smile. "You're too soft to do anything about it," he added. Then he slammed the door in my face. I stood there on his porch, just staring. I knocked again, louder. Nothing. Locked. Shades drawn. I walked back home in shock. I didn't even tell my wife right away. I couldn't. I felt embarrassed, stupid, like a fool. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I went out to the shed to double-check what I still had left. That's when I saw it. The door was wide open. The lock had been busted clean off. Inside, it was chaos. Empty shelves.
Pegboards stripped bara.
Cans knocked over. The mower gone. My ladder. Even the toolbox my dad gave me when I turned 18 gone. I just stood there. I didn't yell. Didn't call the cops. I walked back inside and sat at the kitchen table until it got dark. For 3 days, I did nothing. I went to work, came home, ate dinner in silence. My wife asked what was wrong. I told her I was just tired. Then on the 4th day, I saw a post on the local Facebook group. Someone mentioned how nice it was that the older gentleman on Maple Street was renting out tools so cheap.
Said he even had a sign now.
I froze. I clicked on the photo attached to the post. It showed Mr. Hargrove standing in his garage next to a folding table lined with tools. Tools that looked a lot like mine. My blue drill. My red sander. Even the green-handled wrench set I'd marked with black tape. He wasn't just stealing them. He was running a business with them. I couldn't breathe. I got up, grabbed my keys, and drove down the block. I didn't knock this time. I waited until he was outside in his driveway talking to someone, laughing like he hadn't robbed me blind. When the other person left, I walked straight up to him. "I want my tools back," I said. He tilted his head and smirked. "What tools?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." He didn't even pretend to be sorry. He just said, "You gave them to me. That's not theft. You handed them over. You never returned them. You never asked hard enough." I stood there, fists clenched, and then I walked away. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I started planning. That night I stayed up cataloging everything I could remember. Every tool, the make, model, even the scratches and markings I'd recognize. I printed the Facebook post. Took screenshots. Wrote everything down. And then I started visiting his garage sale. One by one, I went over pretending to be a customer. I'd point to something. Oh, wow, how much for that sander? And he'd give a price. I'd take pictures when he wasn't looking. I made a record of it all. Then I reported it to the local police and the homeowners association. They said it was a civil matter. No forced entry, no proof he stole anything. They told me I could take him to small claims court, but that'd take months. Maybe longer. So I came up with my own plan. I'll post what I did next in the next update. Let's just say, I wasn't as soft as he thought.
So here's what I did.
I waited until a Sunday. People around here usually sleep in, but Mr. Hargrove? He opened up shop early. Like clockwork, he rolled up his garage door at 7:30 a.m., put out his little handwritten sign, "Tool rentals, cash only," and laid everything out. That morning, I wasn't alone. I brought my cousin James. He's a big guy, works in construction, shaved head, arms like tree trunks. Not the type to be pushed around. I told him everything. He didn't say much, just nodded and said, "Let's go get your stuff." We parked 2 houses down and walked up like customers. Hargrove was wearing one of those fishing hats, sunglasses on even though it was cloudy. When he saw us, his mouth twitched. I don't think he expected me to come back, definitely not with someone like James. "Back again," he said, smiling that smug smile. James didn't say a word. He walked right into the garage and started picking up tools. Hey, Hargrove snapped. "You can't just—" "These are his," James said, pointing at me. "We're taking them. You'll be charged with theft," Hargrove yelled. James looked at him like he was dirt. "You stole from him. We're just collecting." I walked over to the bench. My old green toolbox was there. Still had my name scratched on the bottom. I picked it up and opened it. All my stuff, still in the same order I left it months ago. I looked at Hargrove and said, "You want to call the cops? Go ahead. I already talked to them. Got photos, got posts, got everything. We'll let them sort out." He stood there fuming, jaw tight, but didn't move. He didn't call. He didn't say anything else. We carried out everything we could identify. Took pictures of what we weren't sure about, to look at later. Loaded up James's truck. It wasn't all of it. Some pieces were missing, maybe rented out or sold, but I got about 70% of it back that day. I thought that'd be the end. But of course, it wasn't. 2 nights later, someone threw a brick through my front window. No note. No knock. Just the sound of glass shattering at 2 a.m. My wife screamed. I ran outside, barefoot, heart racing. The street was empty. I filed a report this time. The cop was polite but honest. "Unless you saw who did it, not much we can do. Could be kids. Could be anything." But I knew. Next morning, I found something even worse. My car, keyed on both sides. Deep, angry lines down the paint. I just paid it off 6 months ago. I didn't even get mad this time. I just stood there and stared at it. Then I went inside, opened my laptop, and started making copies of everything. I was done playing fair. I started with the HOA. They'd brushed me off the first time, told me it was a personal matter, but now I had more. Photos. Facebook posts. A police report about the brick. I scheduled a meeting and showed up with a folder thick with proof. They were all there, 3 board members sitting in that little community room by the pool. I laid it all out. I stayed calm. Didn't raise my voice. One of them, Janet, leaned forward, flipping through the photos. "So, you're saying he's running a business out of his garage?" "Using stolen tools," I said. "From me." The other 2 exchanged looks. Apparently, this wasn't Hargrove's first issue. One of them mentioned he'd already gotten 2 written warnings about violating community rules, once for noise complaints, once for leaving junk in his driveway for weeks. "He's 1 more strike away from forced board review," Janet said. That got my attention. What happens then? He could be fined or evicted depending on how bad it gets. That was the first time I felt a flicker of real control in weeks. But before I could even think about what to do next, I got a letter in the mail 2 days later. Certified. From Hargrove's lawyer. Inside was a formal cease and desist. accusing me of harassment, theft, and defamation. It even included a printed out copy of a Facebook comment I'd made under that post. Just 3 words. Those are mine. I stared at the paper, trying not to scream. I'd done everything right. Quiet, polite, careful. And still, he was using the system to fight back. I called the number on the letter, got his secretary, left a message. Then I called my own lawyer, a guy I went to high school with who does legal work now. He agreed to help, said not to worry but that it could get messy. Meanwhile, I stopped sleeping again. I started checking my cameras every hour. Set up new motion lights in the backyard. I had a constant tightness in my chest, like something bad was about to drop. And then it did. One evening, I pulled into the driveway and saw something strange. My garage door was slightly open. I always close it. Always. I stepped inside. Nothing looked touched at first. But then I noticed it. One of my drill cases was missing. I knew it had been there. I'd cleaned and stacked them all by model the week before.
Gone.
No signs of a break-in. No forced entry. Just gone. That's when it clicked. Someone had a remote. Someone who'd been inside before. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I checked the camera feed. Between 2:04 and 2:11 p.m., a blurry figure stepped into the garage, stayed for 5 minutes, and left. Face covered. Hood up. Limping slightly. A limp. Just like Hargrove. But it wasn't him. I watched it again and again. The frame was too tall. The build was different. Then I remembered something. Hargrove had a grandson. Teenager. Moved in with him last fall after some trouble at school, he'd once said. I looked him up. Found an old school suspension notice on the town court website.
Petty theft.
Suddenly, it all made sense. This wasn't just about tools anymore. This was turning into something deeper, something uglier. I had to do something. But what I did next, that's where everything changed. Now I had a name.
Kyle.
That was the grandson's name. I found it on the court record. Kyle Hargrove, age 17, listed for shoplifting and vandalism. I'd never seen him up close, but I remembered catching glimpses. Sitting on the porch with a hoodie pulled low, smoking behind the shed. One time I saw him dragging a trash bag full of what looked like wires toward the curb. It hit me all at once. He wasn't just helping his grandfather borrow tools. He was learning from him. And maybe even doing the dirtier work. I printed out the court record and added it to my growing file. Then I checked my garage door opener system. Sure enough, the manual override code had been reset. That meant someone had gone in, held down the learn button on the motor, and synced a new remote. You have to know what you're doing, or watch a YouTube video. And now I had a bigger problem. My home wasn't safe anymore. I went to the police with the video footage. They watched it, nodded, made a report. No clear ID, the officer said. It's suspicious, but unless we catch them in the act, not much we can do. I left feeling powerless. Again. But I wasn't about to give up. I installed a second camera, this one hidden, right inside the garage light fixture. Wide angle, full HD. I also picked up a GPS tracker and stuck it to the bottom of one of my newer tool cases, just in case they came back for more. I didn't have to wait long. 3 nights later, it happened again. This time I got everything, clear footage, full face, even a brief voice clip. It was Kyle, no question. He stepped right into the garage, grabbed the same toolbox I tagged, and walked it out the side door. I tracked the GPS signal the next morning. It pinged 2 blocks down, behind an old gas station turned workshop. The place was boarded up, but there was a side unit with a half-open roll-up door. And guess what was inside? A mess of scattered tools. Power cords. Boxes of screws and bolts.
Tarps.
And in the middle of it, my red toolbox cracked open, my initials on every single wrench. I called it in immediately. This time, the cops took it seriously. They brought backup, took photos, collected my footage, said they'd question both Hargrove and Kyle. I thought I'd finally hit a turning point, but I was wrong. The next day, I got a knock at my door. It wasn't the police. It was Janet from the HOA, holding a clipboard and looking uncomfortable. "We got a complaint," she said. "From Mr. Hargrove." "About what?" I asked. She hesitated. "He claims you're harassing him. Filming his house. Stalking his grandson." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Janet," I said, "he's robbing me blind." "I believe you," she said quietly. "But now it's a neighbor dispute. We can't take sides." And just like that, the system closed its eyes again. So now I was out in the open. He knew I had proof. I knew he was getting desperate. And still, he was coming after me like I was the criminal. I don't know how this ends yet, but I'm not walking away. Because there's one last move I haven't made yet. And when I do, there won't be any hiding. They never gave the tools back. Not really. I got some of them, sure, but not the ones that mattered. Not the toolbox my dad gave me. Not the time I lost walking on eggshells in my own home. The police never pressed charges. The HOA stayed quiet. And Hargrove, he still waves at me sometimes like none of it ever happened. Sometimes I wave back. I don't know why. Maybe I just got tired of fighting. But I still keep the camera running. I still check the lock twice. And every time I reach for a tool, I wonder if it'll be gone again the next day. The part that gets me most? It wasn't about the tools. It was that he looked me in the eye and said I was too soft. And for a while, he was right.